Okay, so we were talking about enlightened humility and stuff, and like six-pointed stars, the police department, and the five-pointed pentagrams with the star and the circle that the sheriff departments, how they are, and the Jews too, and the capital cities on the maps, right? So that's what we were just talking about. And what we're going to talk about next is how pitchforks and tridents are totally different. Okay, so let's not get those two confused. What else? I know there was something else that was, oh, enlightenment. Yeah, it's being attentive to motivations, like my own inner motivations, and it could be attentive to other people's motivations, whether they recognize those motivations or not. I can be attentive to them. I can be alert, awakened, enlightened, cautious, considerate, conservative, prudent, selective, intelligent, wise. I can be attentive to motivations and also to which to which methods effectively promote the fulfillment of those motivations. I can calibrate my behavior based on social circumstances, my own motivations, and non-social circumstances like the weather, would be part of my environment or circumstance, but it's not social. Um, so we can also call that relaxed mindful state by the label humility, when we're attentive to motivations and attentive to methods that fulfill motivations effectively. That could be called humility because it's not attempting to socially manipulate others to think so that others think that one is more stable or more uh, socially approvable, socially conforming than one actually is. Humility is just like, hey, I'm respecting the potential for social consequences like punishment, like rewards. I don't have to say anything. I don't have to deny anything, pretend anything. Humility doesn't require talking. So humility is not obsessed in a distressed way with social approval. If there's an attention to social approval, okay, there can be precise measurement of it. It doesn't have to be this presumptive, completely, basically in a distressed state, people are adhering to behavioral patterns that are habits that were conditioned uh, at times when they were in distress uh, through social pressure, through social intimidation rituals, social programming, conditioning. And then they maintain the distress. They're no longer in that setting. They still experience the distress. They still keep the habits. And what there is to do is to relax the distress first. You can't really, it can be externally disciplined so that somebody's uh, familiar habits are interrupted, but that's tricky. The issue really practically is you can uh, impose rewards, impose punishments, you can create stress, you can create relief of stress, you can uh, create a respect for motivations and exploration of what are the motivations that are present. So humility is a relaxed, mindful state, a state of an innocent child. Uh, and we can maintain all of that with advanced learning, advanced language skills, intelligence, recognition of cause and effect. It's not just about stacking blocks in an enlightened way. It's about everything we do, from stacking blocks to diet to interpersonal relationships to business to gardening to whatever it may be, driving a car, flying an airplane. So humility is distinct from social obsessions that are, paranoid or the arrogant pretense on top of anxiety or paranoia. That's not humility. The anxious state, I don't think we would call that humility. Humility tends to be relaxed. I'm talking about the experience of humility, not what other people might label as a humble person, but the internal experience of humility. Of I don't need other people's validation and approval. I don't need the agreement of other people. I'm not obsessed with their approval or with popularity or what's most popular. I don't need to conform to what's most popular just because it's most popular. I may conform to what's popular. I may not. That really has nothing to do with whether or not it's popular. The popularity of a thing isn't generally of great interest to me if I'm in that mode of humility. Where others are going to be really obsessed about social approval and social consensus and social validation, as well as social, potential punishments and benefits. So mainstream taxpayers, what about those folks? Well, the reality may be that a particular governing system is has a bunch of policies and agencies, and the policies and the agencies consistently produce some certain results. However, the policies and agencies consistently say that their intentions are to produce these results, but they consistently produce these results. Which is more important? Well, to some taxpayers who are really anxious about justifying their participation, they don't want to feel guilty about, supporting a regime that they think is engaged in shameful and corrupt activities. So they're likely to focus on what the politicians say and what the news media says. They're going to, isolate a particular candidate as the one that's the traitor or something. They're not looking at the system as a whole. They're not looking at the patterns of history. This is what the system does. This is what it does over and over consistently. That's what this agency does. That's what this group does. That's what this party does. That's what this county or state or whatever, governing entity, the King of Kings that supervises over all the different coronated kings and stuff throughout the different regions. What did they actually do? What results they produce? What did they do? What is consistently going on there? And they may look at some of the internal documents, but what they say to the public, what they publicize, that might be one of the things they do is they have publicity campaigns. So we could look at the publicity campaigns and study the campaigns, not just focus on the words of the campaigns as if they're, the stated intent of all these programs is super important. It could be important in regard to promoting compliance amongst taxpayers. The taxpayer may anxiously want to defend and kind of obsess over the stated slogans and doctrines and dogmas. They may want to distract themselves from their own inner experience, their own motivations, their own observations, and then other people who are making intelligent criticisms and analysis of what's really going on. That may be very offensive and insulting to an anxious taxpayer, a mainstream taxpayer who's just terrified. They're just intimidated. They're paying taxes because they're going to, they're scared of punishment if they don't. But they also may have that sense of guilt of, well, I want to support a government that's good. So the more that I pay, the more biased I am to find things to justify my contributions and to make it seem like, well, I'm not really getting bullied. I'm part of a really good system. I'm a participant in a really good system. This plantation where I'm a slave, we make some great products, okay? I'm proud of the products that we make. So, in conclusion, let's talk about Moses, Muhammad, and Count Dracula. Count Dracula, I'm talking about the real historical figure. There were a couple different counts of the family Dracula. I'm talking about the one in particular, Vlad Tepes, that was known as the Impaler for putting people on stakes. That Count Dracula, okay? The real historical figure. All of those three, Moses, Muhammad, and Count Dracula, were Semites. They were descendants of Shem. That's actually not true. Only Moses and Muhammad were Semites. Okay, so those two were anti-Semitic Semites because they directed the slaughtering of one of the other neighboring tribes of Semites. Moses directed the slaughtering by the Israelite army of the Midianites. Muhammad, didn't he direct the slaughtering of some other Semites? I don't know. I think he's anti-Semitic because he was an Arab, which means he was Semitic, and he was like, he killed some other Arabs, probably. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think he did. Maybe somewhere after him, in fact. There was a lot, just conflict and stuff. Count Dracula wasn't Semitic. I don't think he even killed any Semitic people. But he did not stab his enemies with the trident, which is against the holy rules of football. And so we gotta, if you attend to the holy rules of football, you don't just stab, the other players on the other team with the trident. That's not allowed. It's bad sportsmanship. And if you do stab the other team, the players of the other team with the trident, I would advise you don't do it during the game, first of all. And if you do do it, do it during the game. That was tough. Don't do it when the officials are looking. Okay, have the officials distracted. Like have some cheerleaders flash their, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, flash their. And then, because that's, learn from pro wrestlers, okay? If you're going to stab the opposing player with a trident, I learned this from pro wrestling, make sure the official isn't looking. Now, when the official looks back and is like, hey, weren't there 11 players on this team a minute ago? And now there's only 10. And there's this guy over here that has the jersey of that team, and he's like blood spurting out of him. He's got a trident, too, sticking out of his chest and stuff. Y'all can be like, because this is the enlightened way to approach things. There's motivations. There's a variety of ways to pursue those motivations. And when the official comes and says, "Hey, we're gonna restrict your social rewards. We're not going to give you the championship. We're going to disqualify you from this Super Bowl. We may even take back your ring. Ooh, we may even penalize you, like, I don't know, 15-yard penalty, right?" So if the official says, "Did one of you guys stab that other player with a trident?" Fifth Amendment, right? Take the fifth. Discreet. Secrecy, modesty, humility, respect the potential consequences of speaking, loosely, right? Loose lips sink ships. That was the old Navy saying, because if you, tell people, if you, are on the phone or in the port, you go into the port and then you tell people where you're going, and then it gets around to the spy network and the enemy knows about it and they're prepared for where you're going and stuff. You can't do that in war. War is about destruction effectively. Okay? So if you're part of an imperialist system, you need to be aware that part of the system is the use of social punishments and destruction, weapons of mass destruction. So if you're part of a system of weapons of mass destruction, if you're one of the sheriff departments or the police departments or the soldiers or navies and stuff, well, you don't tell. It's like you don't, hey, call up, hey, we're coming, we're going to come through that direction and down that street, and we're going to bring this kind of equipment when we come, and this many tanks and all that. You don't call them and warn them in advance. Okay, just don't do that. It's not the enlightened approach. So anyway, that's what I have to say today about the enlightened approach. Humility is an interest in calibrating our actions to our motivations and our actual circumstances in the pursuit of effectiveness. It's attentive, it's mindful, it's open to learning, as distinct from a state of distress and obsession over social approval and what is going to get insignificant social validation. If there's no significance to an instance of social validation, then why be distracted with concerns about that?